welcome to the Music Polyglot channel. Now, this being the Music Polyglot channel, you know you'll have good quality subtitles down there. Today, we're going to look at Earth, Wind and Fire's September. Now, what you heard back there was 3 different guitar parts. Only 2 of them are on the record, but I added a 3rd part with the chords, just in case you need to play this song in a band that is smaller than Earth, Wind and Fire. Anyway, if you are a professional player or a very advanced player, that was all you needed to know. So you can now go get 'em, Tiger. For the rest of us, we'll break things down so you know exactly what to do in order to play the song as it sounds on the record. Let's get to it. Let's go straight to the point, all right? Your first note is a C sharp, so that's on the 3rd string, 6th fret with your index. And that's the note, C sharp. Then you want to play with your pinky, or if you want with your 3rd finger. There really isn't a technical difference as to which one is preferable. Anyway, with the pinky, I'll play it with the pinky. So with the pinky, you'll play the D string on the 9th fret. It's that. Okay. So you'll have 3 notes on the C sharp, and then you'll come down to that B with the pinky on the D string. And then with finger 2, you come down to the 7th fret on that same D string. That will give you an A note, that one there. So far you have this. Okay. Now, 2 things to notice straight away. Notice how they're not gentle notes or round notes like this. Right? What you're doing is you're actually picking really hard to get that slappy sound. Okay, so you want maybe check that your volume isn't too high so that you can give it a good welly with your picking hand, and make sure that you actually pick quite hard. Now, careful, you don't want to overdo it because strings do break. Give it a couple of goes and find the right strength for it. But in any case, you want to get that slappy sound. Okay, so we're up to that point. Then with that finger 2, we slide up 2 frets. Okay, so far you have, and then again 2 more of those. Then you come down to the 6th fret, same string, 6th fret with finger 1, and then finger 2 again on the 7th fret. Okay, so all that together. And that happens twice. A second thing about the sound to pay attention to is notice how the notes are actually quite short. Not only are we playing hard, but we're also cutting the notes short. That's called staccato, which literally means that the notes are not attached. What you do is you release pressure, you release tension without lifting the finger off the string. You don't want to lift the finger off the string, but you release pressure, thus muting the sound. Right? And you practically have that after every note. Except there at the end. Did you notice? Alright, so what I suggest you do is you practice that and listen to the record to get a feel for where it's important to play those notes short and where it isn't that important. You'll notice when you listen to the record that this may not be the only pattern. It is quite erratic, and in this sort of music you should start getting used to that. It's not really about playing one single pattern through the whole song and making it as precise as possible. This is really about staying true to the spirit of the pattern, and it's all right to play variations as long as they remain in the same spirit. Okay, so after twice of twice, time is different. You slide up, but you come down straight away. You play 2 G sharps there on the 6th fret of the D string. Right, so just that third time. And then you hit that chord. It really is, when you listen to what the bass is doing as well, it's a G chord over an A bass. Yeah. Now, you don't need to play the bass note because the bass is playing the bass note. So what you play is just the top 4 notes. So let me give them to you. Index on the 2nd string 3rd fret, finger 2 on the 3rd string 4th fret, finger 3 on the D string, that's the 4th string 5th fret, and finally the pinky on the high E string 5th fret. Okay, you're playing all 4 strings. Remember that this music is based around semiquaver patterns or 16th note patterns. What that means really for us is that we have to have our strumming hand going 1, 2, 3, 4 constantly, and not only that, but it needs to be playing 16th notes. So you have to be going 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E, and whether you play or not, that's your default motion for the right hand. So this pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so first you strum on the first beat of the bar. 1, 2, 3, down, up, down, 2, 3, down, up, down, 2, 3, down, up, down, 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 down. Okay, it is quite important to get the direction of the strums right. You'll see that that will help you keep time. It's easier in the long run if you work on your down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Now, just make sure that your hand's going 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Cool. All right, so that's all there is to the main guitar part, really. You know, it keeps playing the same phrase over and over again in the verses, in the choruses, etc., etc. It just goes on forever. The only thing that's different is the length of those. Whether you play that for 2 bars, just 1 bar. At the end of the intro, it's 4 bars of that, whereas in between verses and choruses, it's only 2 bars. Yeah, so that's the only difference, but essentially that's the part. Now let me show you the second guitar part. That's also quite important. It starts off in the intro, and you're playing octaves, right? So essentially you're playing the same note in duplicate, except that that's, say, an A, and then you play the high version of that A. So to play octaves on these 2 strings, you need finger 1 on the D string 7th fret, and then you need the pinky on the 2nd string 10th fret. You're playing with a pick, so this is important. Check out how my index is actually touching the 5th string. That's in order to mute it. I don't want that to ring out, so if I happen to strum it, it won't ring out if I'm touching it lightly. Then you definitely don't want to hear the G string, right? You don't want that. You're not partially barring. Okay, you need to make sure that it's dead. You don't want to hear it. And also the high E string. You also don't want to hear that one. You only want to hear those 2 notes. Okay. Let me play the part for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's the same rhythm over and over again. If you listen carefully to the recording, you'll notice that there are more than just one rhythm pattern. You can play little variations on the pattern as long as you stay consistent. Okay. Now we are going to focus on just the first couple of bars, and then so you get the spirit of the whole part, and then you can come up with little variations if you want, or you can just repeat the thing over and over again. So we have Again, your hand needs to be going 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. We'll put this together one beat at a time. The first beat, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. So 1 and a, down up, down up. We'll add the second beat. 1 and a 2 and a 3, 4, and again 1 and a 2 and a, in downs and ups, down up, down up, down, down up. Okay, we'll add the third beat. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and, so that's down up, down up, down, down up, down, down. Okay, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4 and down up, down up, down, down up, down, down, down up, down. Okay, if you do it like that and you just add one beat at a time until you get comfortable with it, you're giving your brain a lot more time to process all the new information, and in the end it will take you less time to get it right this way than if you just repeat and try and get it by trial and error. Okay, some sort of method always saves you time. When you get to the verse, you have this. Okay, so how does that go? It goes like this. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3. Okay, you're playing on 2 E and da, and then you're sliding up 2 frets. So your index is on the high E string 5th fret, and your third finger is on the 7th fret of the B string. Okay, you play both together. Okay, now again, you want to mute the G string so that it doesn't ring out. You can do that by lightly touching it with the third finger if you want, since it's not doing anything. What I do, I'm just looking at it now, I actually rest my second finger on strings 3 and 4, so I'm just making sure that I'm muting that. In case I happen to hit it with my pick, I'm going to be careful and try not to, but if I happen to hit them, they won't ring out open, right? They're going to be, it's kind of a safety net, so you can try that. So what you're playing is 1, 2 E and then you slide up 2 frets, the same position, right? So that will bring you to index on the 7th and third finger on the 9th of the B string. But you're sliding up, so you're not actually strumming that third beat. So 1, 2, 3, and then it happens every 2 bars. Okay. If you listen to the record, you'll notice that sometimes in some verses it's there, like I know that it's there on the first verse, and then it really doesn't come back till the end, if at all, really. Now, it plays a very, very similar line in the choruses. It doesn't come in until kind of the end, when the chorus starts repeating. That's where it goes. Okay, so let me actually tell you what the 2 notes are. So you have your second finger on the 9th fret of the high E string, and then you have finger 3, your ring finger, on the 10th fret of the B string. It's essentially the top 2 notes of a D shape, right? And then you drop, right? So your third finger is only dropping 1 fret from the 10th to the 9th, and you switch. You let go of the second finger and the first finger goes up to play that high E string on the 7th fret. Okay. Then you go back to your first shape and you'll come down to the 5th fret. Same shape. So index on the 5th and third finger on the 7th fret. Okay. There. And then down to the 5th fret. It's the same rhythm, it's 2 E and 3, but this time you do play the 3. So slowly. 1, 2 E and 3, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1. Okay, so you'll notice that what's difficult here is to keep those notes clean, right? To not let anything else ring out, especially at that speed. Right? It is quite hard. So you have to make sure that you use your index to mute. So as you've probably noticed, the guitar parts aren't really full at all. I mean, you're playing mainly rhythm. And in this type of music, that is the role of the guitar. The guitar rarely plays strums away on chords, you know. The guitar in this type of music is mainly playing rhythm and adding little ornaments and little figures here and there to spice things up. We're not really playing full chords, you know, bar chords on this type of music. That doesn't really happen. But having said that, I know that maybe some of you will want to play and sing, for example. You can't really sing to that, right? Although as cool as it is, you can't really sing to it. Or maybe you play in a band, but you know, you don't have like 25 horn players and 35 string players and a million singers, and you need to be playing more. Hell, you might not even have a keyboard player that's holding down the chords in your band, so you have to do that. So for that reason, and exceptionally, I'll show you a part that isn't on the record, okay? This is my disclaimer here. So the music polyglot usually only shows you stuff that's on the record. Now this part isn't on the record. Let me show you the chords, the actual chords for the thing. We start with a D major 7. Then we go down to a C sharp minor 7. Then to a B minor 7. So far we have, you're following the same rhythm as the, you're following that. Then you go up to the C sharp minor 7. And then you have this F sharp minor 6th. Maybe that one I'll break down for you since it might be new. First finger, G string, first fret. Your second finger is playing the bass note on the F sharp on the 6th string, second fret. And then the third finger is playing that E on the D string, second fret. And you really only want to hear those three strings, okay? You should be muting that, and you should be muting the first and second strings as well. You do that with your index. Right, making sure that it's actually a bit flat, not perfectly curved, but actually a bit flat. It would go like this. And then you resolve down to an F sharp minor 7. If this is tricky, don't stress about it and just go straight to an F sharp minor 7. Admittedly, not as cool, but it works. But if you have the patience, which you should, work on that new shape to get this. Better. Notice on the third time, that C sharp becomes a C sharp 7. So. Then same thing, and then you'll come up to that G over A. Okay, and on that G over A, what you can do in terms of the rhythm, okay, in the choruses, the chords change. The chords change to B minor 7, E9, okay, and then to C sharp minor 7, and then F sharp minor 7. Okay. You can play around with the rhythm here because you don't really need to be following the anymore, although you can if you want to. But if you're playing on your own, or if you're playing in a smaller band, you may actually want to change things around, otherwise it may sound a little bit monotonous by this point. So you can play a little bit of syncopation, something like. I don't want to impose that on you because, you know, as I said, that's not on the record. So do your own thing there. It's always a good idea to just not make stuff up, but actually use the track as reference. I mean, everyone's playing some sort of rhythm, right? So listen to the drums, listen to the bass, see what they're doing, and you might want to use those rhythms there because you know that they are going to work because they're part of the song. It's just the guitar wasn't playing them. Well, now it is, right? You can play them as well. So get your information from somewhere. You don't need to make stuff up. So that's it. A really fun song to play. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're after tabs or sheet music or more in-depth details about how to play the chords, for example, that aren't really on the record, you know, even a consultation, all that is available to all my Patreons. So why not consider becoming one yourself, following the link below. Thank you for watching till the end, and until next time, hasta la prossima, arrivederci, au revoir.